As you may already know, we in the UK are very, very, very unfortunate with our knife laws. There's reasons for it, but we're not going to get into it today. I don't agree with them, but here we are. And basically there's huge restrictions on what we can and can't carry, and they're now starting to even put laws in place to restrict what you can and can't own. And what I've done over the last, say, year and a half or so is I've took the time to test out a fair few UK legal knives. I've worked with a few companies, and in short, to be UK legal, a knife has to have a blade length of under 3 inches. That's the entire blade, not just the cutting edge, and it can't lock in any way at all. A lot of companies have been coming out with double detent knives. Obviously, you've got the old school slip joints, which are always great, and I love a slip joint. And after testing all these knives out, double detents are way less safe to use for the user than a slip joint knife. And if you don't know how either of these mechanisms work, basically a slip joint, when you open the knife, there's this bar on the top that moves, and that essentially stops the knife from just freely folding up on you. And with a double detent, what you have is these two little detent mechanisms inside the liners of the knife, and when the knife is deployed and the blade is out, these two little detent mechanism things just slightly bend in and just keep that knife in place, the same as a slip joint would, but not quite as strong. I recently was lucky enough to be sent out this knife from Vero. This is the Vero Neuron, UK legal, under 3 inches, non-lock-in, and it's on a double detent mechanism. Love this knife. I'm going to be doing a proper review on it soon, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can take these knives apart and make the double detent mechanism stronger so the knife will not fold up as easily and freely as it does. Since using these double detent knives, I've cut myself many a time. Proof in the pudding, this knife actually still has my blood on it from a recent accident I had using it. The first thing you can do to try and tighten these mechanisms up is just literally tighten up the pivot. I tried that when I first got this knife and it didn't work at all. So now we are resorting to taking this apart and trying to change things from the inside out. So obviously take your scales off, and inside you will see that your knife is absolutely filthy from being inside your pocket. So put all these bits to one side, and I'm just going to show you quickly now what the inside of these knives look like. So as you can see here, this is the liner on the inside of the knife. You can just pop that out, and this is where the double detent is. This right here, this little pokey outy bit, is the double detent mechanism essentially. So literally all we're going to do is we're going to take both liners out with the double detents in, and we're just going to push them forwards to make them bend in a little bit further. And essentially what that will do is mean that the blade will be locked tighter in place, not locked, held tighter in place when it's open, meaning that it is safer for you to use. So I'm just going to use a pair of pliers, grip onto it. Hopefully this doesn't break, and hopefully this will work. So we'll go in here like this, and then we'll just gently try and bend this in a bit. Okay, that definitely looks like it's more bent in now. If we grab the other side, if I hold this up, you can see that the right hand side is now way more bent in than the left hand side. And in theory, this should mean that if I do the other side as well, the blade should be held in place a lot more firmly, meaning that it will not close up and chop me like an axe like it did the other day. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did on that side with this side. And then we'll put the beast back together and have a look and see if this actually works. Because I know I said I was going to show you that this is a way to do it, but I wasn't actually sure. I just thought I'd try. One thing you do want to do is make sure they're as even as you can, and they do look fairly even to me. This one could maybe bend out a little further. Cool. Right, so now I have bent these detent mechanisms in the liners, and I'm just going to try to put the knife back together and actually see if this has worked. One thing to always make sure you do, though, when you take a knife apart is not lose anything and have a cloth handy, because knives get filthy when they're in your pocket. So just making sure that once you've taken it apart, give it a nice little clean, and when you put it back together, it'll just be like it's just come back out of the factory, but better. I can't remember which way around this went back together. That's one thing that you need to make sure you do when you're putting a knife back together or taking a knife apart, is make sure you remember which way round things go, because now I'm sat here and I'm a bit stuck. I have no fucking idea which way round any of this went. That, already, the spring from that detent is pushing the blade back off when it's not secured in place, which is a good sign. Means that it seems to be a bit stronger, which is what I wanted. No matter how many times I take a knife apart, I always struggle to get them back together. Do you know what? I'm going to put this down against the actual marble of this table itself, rather than the soft squishiness of that, and see if that makes any difference. Right, that pivot screw is back in. Now I just need to get the spacer in the back in. Need to loosen this a bit to be able to make way. This will just pop in place like so. Get your clip on the other side. The design of these Vero knives is absolutely ridiculous. Like taking it apart and seeing all of the work they'll have put into this to get this to close up on me and cut myself is fascinating. Got that back one back in. Okay, so now it's just a case of tightening up this pivot screw. Right, and now we've got this knife back together. In theory, in fact, I'm going to keep this out because I might need to play with the pivot a little bit more. But in theory, the knife should still open exactly the same as it did, and be a lot harder to close. Flies open still, absolutely beautiful. Now, before I'd done this, I used to be able to put minimum pressure on this blade and it would just snap shut, and this is the reason that it closed up on me. But now, that was a lot harder to do. I'm putting pressure there. That is fantastic. That has completely changed this knife. I even think I could make these a little bit tighter, almost to the point where the knife is virtually locked, but still closable. And I could still get away with that, because technically the knife isn't locked. And I just want to say this, doing what I've just done isn't changing the knife in any way at all to make it more dangerous as a weapon if someone's going to use it. Because for one, what chav, if you're not from the UK, we call the people that stab each other with knives and causing all this shit chavs. They're basically just scum. What chav is going to go out and buy a £350 knife from America to go and hurt someone with? They're not. So what I've done here is not make it more dangerous. What I've done is made this knife a lot safer for the user, because I've had this knife for 3 weeks and I've cut myself on it a fair few times already, and nearly cut myself even more times because of it closing up. So purely just bending these detent mechanisms inside these liners and making it harder to close has made this knife tenfold better, and I can't wait to do my review on it now. So hopefully you got something from this video. I'm sorry if it was a bit of a shambles, to be honest, because I didn't really plan it and I was just doing this as I went along and filming an iPhone. But hopefully you get the gist of what I was trying to show you here, and you can now go and implement this onto your knives that are double detents and less safe than locking knives. If you like this video, drop it a like, leave me a comment on what your thoughts are on this process. If you're not subscribed already, just hit the button for me. Love to have you join along. Plenty more videos coming. UK legal knives, EDC kits, gear hauls, non-UK legal knives, you name it. We're covering it all. So enjoy yourself, have a great week, and until next time, I'll see you later.